Well, howdy, boys. I was out here checking out this property. Got a cool sign there. I'm not advertising for anyone, but on the bottom it says, "Commit your work to the Lord and it will succeed." Proverbs 16:3. Nice little saying there. Anyways, point of this video, boys, I figured I'd share with you. Yesterday I posted a video about plugging in this bad boy. Not specifically this truck, just overall, generically speaking about everything, and figured I got the plug-in, my thoughts on the plug-in side and what, where, when, why type of deal. Why would I finish off that topic, the whole winter aspect of diesel pickups? Of course, this video isn't for everybody, so if you've been, driving a diesel in the winter, probably shut down this video. It ain't for you. But for those guys that are new to the diesel pickups, or just are curious, watch on. Point of this video: what do you watch for, and what do you need to know for a diesel pickup? What's the gripe all about? Sometimes you hear, "Oh man, just buy a gas or truck. It's so much easier, this and that. It's so much cheaper. It's so much easier." I mean, I hear those phrases all the time. Son, you can't haul 30,000 pounds with a gasser. Okay, maybe you can if you have the gears around town. On the freeway, you're gonna need quite a few more gears. It just doesn't work out. Diesel primarily is a long haul thing. Diesel is for the freeway and cruising along, having that torque, climbing those hills. But I'm not here to tell you should buy a diesel or a gasser. I'm here to tell you what to watch for in a diesel pickup. So let's start with temps. Summer to winter, let's just say cold side of things. I'm gonna throw numbers in there just to so you guys understand what ballpark I'm talking about. So anytime you start a diesel cold, well, I shouldn't say you. These are my thoughts, and just follow along. There's nothing scientific behind it. What do I watch for? So on this first one, you see how you got coolant temp. I usually don't like moving my truck when it's under 100 degrees. Once it goes past 100, that is not full operating temp. That does not mean you get in and you mob the piss out of your truck like it's fully warm. That just means you get to move out slowly. That's what it means to me. Now, trans temp, they sort of follow because, they're in the same loop. Not necessarily same loop, but they share a radiator and lower part of radiator and whatnot. So anyway you spin it, that trans temp is going to come up with an engine temp, not 1-to-1 ratio, but it's not going to be ice cold while your engine's nice and toasty. So trans, you sort of take it easy, but that one just follows the rest. Trans temp is something we could talk about in the hot summers and stuff like that, but that's another topic. I'll leave that one alone. Oil temp, I like to see 100 as well. Oil temp 100, and I'll start moving out, unless I'm in a real hurry, and then I'll let the truck idle for a minute. And a lot of times a minute means absolutely nothing. Like today, it's 41 degrees, as you can tell right there. It says 41. That's the ambient temperature outside. The truck warms up a lot quicker. But with 100 degrees, I feel like the oil, not necessarily the additives in the oil, start working, properly. And no, that does not mean you got a fully warm engine. Fully warm engine to me is about 180 degrees on the oil and about 180 on the coolant. As you can tell, mine are really close to each other. So that's my theory. I'll throw it in there. What's the max? I say on the coolant, I like to see I'm fine seeing anywhere between 180 and 205. Once it starts going past 205, it's like the yellow zone. There's not much of yellow zone for me. 210, 215. By 215, we're definitely in the red zone. I got to do something and let this thing cool off. So, operating temp in my world is 180 to 205. That's me. Doesn't mean it has to be you, but that's what I do. That's the point of this video. Share my thoughts as a owner of a couple fleets. I own big rigs and I own small rigs, and we're talking about a small rig here, a little pickup truck. And the same thing goes with the cool. Or actually, no, the oil temperature is different for me. I say 180 is on the bottom side of operating. That's like the entry stage of operating. And I'm fine seeing 220 on the oil. Oil is could go higher, and I'm fine with that. And it will go higher. Like you're climbing a steep grade with a lot of weight and it's hot outside, it'll climb higher. 220, that's my operating temp. I'm okay, like the yellow area, should I say the cautionary area, 2 to 235. After 235, it gets into the red zone for me, 240. And quite frankly, you tell me coolant 220 and you tell me oil 250, I'll freak out about the coolant a lot harder with the 220 oil. It bothers me, I shouldn't say freak out. 220 coolant would bother me a lot more than 250 on the oil. So it gives you guys an idea where I stand about this stuff. And the oil's 250 or 240, and I don't remember the last time I've seen it that high, but I think I've had it at 238. I think that's the highest I've seen it. I know other guys have gotten them higher, but let's just say you're at 250, and you've came to your destination. Don't shut off the truck. Don't be stupid. Let the truck idle, turn on high idle, and let it come back down to 220, 215 before you shut it down. And believe me, it's not going to start cooling off as soon as you park that truck. It'll take 15 minutes to bring the temps a little bit down. Keep in mind, if you're hauling and you're at 250 and you came to destination, park the truck, shut it off, the temps will only climb higher. So what you need to do is let it cycle for, that's extreme case, but let it cycle for 15 minutes. Let it cool off the metals. The oil starts cooling off the metals, because when you're romping it, the oil gets heated because of the metals, right? The combustion chamber. I'm talking about the engine oil. So the metals are taking lead and the oil's cooling it off, right? And then once you let it idle, the oil is circulating through the radiator and it's cooling off the metals. So what happens if you shut it down at 250? That oil isn't flowing, it ain't cooling anything off, and it becomes a little oven for a little, probably climb to 260, 270, and then it'll start climbing back down if you were to shut off the truck. And that's my speculation, that's not a fact. But definitely let that truck idle in extreme case when it's nice and toasty outside and you've reached 250 on your oil. So anyways, that's that. I'm figured I'd share my opinion with you guys. So much time was spent on that those numbers, but I've done so much research and I've gut feeling and got all this mixed up, and that's my theory and the way I see it. Especially those extreme cases, and that's the case that we're talking about, winter. It's an extreme cold side of the thing, so let's just stay focused here, Paul. So in the winter, let's throw numbers out there. I told you guys, once I get into the 20s, I start plugging in my truck. Well, winter, what comes with winter? Not everyone, a lot of people are screaming synthetic oil, people are screaming anti-gel, and they do have their place and time for everything. I run 1540 oil, but that's synthetic blend. You're going to have a really hard time finding a synthetic blend in 1540. There's nothing wrong with the 540, but I just don't believe it belongs in a diesel engine like Cummins. I know you guys are going to blow up the comment section, go for it. It doesn't bother me. But, those really high tolerance engines, and the only engine that really comes to mind is the Power Stroke. I feel like that engine's pretty tight, because listening to it run and everything, it's a really quiet engine. Cummins is a Cummins. There's a bored out 5.9, which a lot of people say isn't too far off, but it ain't quite there either. So just stay focused here. At 20 degrees, I'd like to see synthetic blend in that engine, like I have myself, and I would advise you to have synthetic blends at 20 degrees outside. I'd say anything up to 0, have synthetic blend in there. Now, you get below 0, I highly advise you to go to 540. That fully synthetic, it's going to help you out on cold starts a lot. And another thing is, if you keep your trucks plugged in, okay? A minute ago I was talking about these numbers. Let's just hypothetically say you left your truck out there, you don't have the convenience of having your truck plugged in. Those are the numbers, 20 to 0, 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I would say highly advise you to have synthetic. Then 0 and below, I highly advise you to have 540 oil in there. Let's just say it's -10 outside and you have your truck plugged in. It don't mean a darn thing. Your oil's going to stay where it's going to stay at. It's going to stay nice and toasty. And there's nothing wrong with running conventional oil at that point. But just make sure your engine's plugged in, Like I've said in my other videos, the biggest damage happens is when that engine has to turn over. That oil is is cold and thick. So synthetic really helps with that, with the cold flow. That's where your damage happens. That oil not flowing well. But anyways, let's take into the point here. Let's pick up where I said about keeping your truck plugged in. If you know that your truck is always going to be plugged in, there's no reason to have synthetic oil in your engine solely for the cold start purposes. There's no reason for it. And this goes majority to those guys that just have their pickups and they drive it once in a blue moon in the winter, once the weather gets really bad, like snow and ice, and probably the RVer guys. If you use your truck day to day, I guarantee you cannot guarantee yourself that every start that truck has, it has an opportunity to have been plugged in before you start it. So, back to rule of thumb, average Joe point of view that always Paul comes from. So, 20 degrees 0, synthetic blend, 0 under 540. There's nothing wrong, always running 540. Nothing wrong with that. I like my 1540 in the Cummins. And I run synthetic blends in the Cummins 1540. It's a Schaefer synthetic blend is what it is. And yeah, this topic is very important. A lot of people don't understand this and they get confused and get misled. Back to the point of fully synthetic, like I started saying, there's no point in having synthetic or blender fully synthetic just for the purpose of cold starts if you're always plugged in. Also, there's no point of, there's no actual need of having fully synthetic oil in your engine if you don't work that truck hard. You're perfectly fine with conventional, and I know you guys are going to throw stuff my way. Go for it. Synthetic is an extreme case thing with me. Like, if your truck really heats up, and everyone's different, like, shoot, if you're always in the mountains in Los Angeles and, out where it's really toasty and you're in the desert climbing hills, bro, you better put some good synthetic oil in there because your engine's going to run hot. Hot air, ambient temperature outside, and, you're just working that engine. You need synthetic. But a guy, or should I say a grandpa or grandma is just cruising along in his pickup, there's no reason why he needs that extreme. So I'm just trying to draw a line between hearsay, he said, and hey, let me spend double the price on synthetic oil just because someone said so. Know your facts, know what the heck you're doing. So, for a quick short rundown, if you're working your truck hard, look into synthetics. I myself work my trucks pretty decently hard, and I run synthetic blend. I feel like that's plenty, that's good, and it works well for us. Schaefer's a good company, and they never paid me $1 or a penny to say anything good about them, but that's what I use, and I want to share it with you guys. Something else, anti-gel products. Winter comes, all my trucks are supposed to have a couple jugs of that anti-gel, one jug at least. So what happens there? I don't run it as a consistently thing. Oh my goodness, it's winter, let's just dump it in every fuel tank, because diesel's already winterized. But a guy has a jug of anti-gel with him, or crap hits the fan, he's driving through Montana, all of a sudden it's 0 and then it's going into hard negatives. Dump that anti-gel into there. Keep your tanks higher. Don't run with an empty tank when it's really cold outside. Don't squeeze that last gallon out of your tank, guys. You'll freeze it. So when it's really cold, like when we're in the negatives, run anti-gel and run more fuel in your tank. What I mean fuel, literally fuel level. Don't let that fuel gauge drop past 2/3. I know I'm being very skeptical. I know I'm nitpicking at stuff, but it's worked for me, and any old school trucker is going to tell you the same thing. Don't run your tanks down when it's really cold outside. So anti-gel, the same thing goes with me. I start looking into about 20 degrees for this truck. Keep in mind, a truck like this that gets used around town once in a blue moon gets hooked up is one story, but a guy that hooks up his truck and just works it all the time, that's a different story. For a guy like me that semi works it, I look into anti-gel at about 20 degrees. I start putting a little bit of anti-gel in there solely because anti-gel has water disbursement or whatever it's called. It pretty much works in the water better, and all the diesel has water in it, guys. Surprise. So anti-gel not only helps you prevent from freezing, also helps you deal with you know, the water in your tank. Let's just keep it simple. Very small parts, but there's quite a bit of water in there. So that's the benefit of an anti-gel. And then once I hit 0 or negatives, I run anti-gel pretty consistently. Now my trucks that are consistently on the road, you know, up to 0 degrees, I'm not too worried about it. Once they go below 0, I tell them to really consider anti-gel. And if they're going into the negatives and it's starting to drop off real quick, dump some diesel anti-gel in there. So those are my thoughts. That's how I do things, and I'm hoping to help all you. I hope I didn't miss anything. You know, what is it when it comes to winter on these pickups? You plug them in, run the right oil in the winter, anti-gel. Oh, and then there's those guys that run cardboards up front, you know, leather wraps up front, so like a windbreaker type of deal for your engine. Well, my thought is the same thing. You know, once you start getting into that 0 temperature and it's staying there, throw them on. You know, your truck's suffering and it's having a hard time staying warm. You know, for me, I just spoke about trucks that run consistently, trucks that are always working. You don't really want to close them off too much and pull hills and get warm. Like, climate's changed. Like, yesterday it was really cold, today it's really warm, and what are you going to do about it? Not a whole lot. So if you got to put that leather bra cover looking thing up front, I think that's what they're called, leather bras or windbreakers, whatever. It's a piece of leather that blocks off the radiators up front on the engine. I think they call it a cold weather package of some sort. I think they'll give you the plug and then they'll give you that leather cover. My thing is, if my guy's working the truck going through passes, it'll stay warm unless it's really in the negatives. Now, if I tell my guys to put them on, you know, and they have to pull them off, put them on, it takes a lot of time, and the guys are going to be bothered by it. So rarely do we ever put those on the working trucks. Me, on my personal truck, I throw in a piece of cardboard right behind the grill, and that's very rare. You know, if I see the weatherman's telling me it's going to be hovering around 0, you know, the single digit numbers, I'll throw a piece of cardboard behind the grill. So I mean, there's still a little bit of airflow. What do we have? A few inches before the radiator, so there's some kind of air going there, and instead of just jamming it between the radiators, and now the radiator is completely shut off of air. And then once the temps get a little warmer, I'd say above 20, I'll just pull it out and throw it away. So that's my story, boys, and that's what I do. So hopefully this helps. Oh my goodness, this is a long video. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to take up so much time. I just breaking it down. Like I said, beginning of this video is not for everyone. For those guys that are curious, I'm pretty sure they don't mind a lengthier video to hear it from a guy that's been dealing with diesels for a while and what's worked with them. You know, as far as my advice to you, I never had fails. So how are you going to learn from something by not failing? Well, it's just a cheaper route that I've done. I know there's guys out there that never ran anti-gel. There's guys out there that just get in their truck, start their truck, and start mobbing in when it's cold. I don't know. This what works for me, and that's what I'm sharing. So hopefully this helps you all. As you always, have a mighty fine day. May the Lord bless you, and God bless. Bye.